And I'm joined now by Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. Good morning to you, Senator. Really pretty alarming images coming out of Iran this morning. And the president saying he is backing those protesters and that he will hit them hard where it hurts. Does this concern you?
Well, you know, we've had various times through the year protests in Iran. We're always hopeful that, you know, a freedom movement will develop and overwhelm the authoritarian government there. The only problem I have with saying, oh, we're going to bomb Iran is that sometimes it has the opposite effect. So when you bomb a country, then people tend to rally around their own flag. They tend to see this is a foreign country coming in and bombing us. And so I don't think it always has that effect. I wish, the same as the president, I want success. I hope that the freedom movement survives. I hope that the Iranian government, doesn't kill the protesters, but it sounds like they already have. But I don't know that bombing Iran will have the effect that is intended.
And what about those threats of bombing right now and what you heard from the Ayatollah there? I don't think I have ever heard a president say they may take military action to protect protesters. Certainly with Soleimani, when the Trump administration hit him, there were massive protests against America. But they are shouting death to the Ayatollah. Do we owe it to those protesters, do you believe, to help them?
Well, I think we wish them the best. We wish freedom and liberation the best across the world. But I don't think it's the job of the American government to be involved with every freedom movement around the world. And I do believe that bombing them may have the opposite. It's like, how do you drop a bomb in the middle of a crowd or a protest and protect the people there? If you bomb the government, do you then rally people to their flag who are upset with the Ayatollah, but then say, well, gosh, we can't have a foreign government invading or bombing our country? It tends to have people rally to the cause. So I think the protests are directed at the Ayatollah, justifiably so. And the best way is to encourage them and say that, of course, we would recognize a government that is a freedom-loving government that allows free elections, but bombing's not the answer. Plus, there is this sticking point of the Constitution that we don't really let presidents bomb countries just when they feel like it. They're supposed to ask the people through the Congress for permission.
And to that point, let's turn to Venezuela. The Senate narrowly advanced the war powers legislation that you co-sponsored, requiring President Trump to seek congressional approval if he goes back and bombs in Venezuela or elsewhere. Even if it passes, it seems very unlikely that Trump would sign it. Is there anything else that you would like to see Congress do?
This is a big debate, probably one of the most important debates we have in Congress. This isn't new, and I've told the president, frankly, it isn't about President Trump per se or solely. It's about really a struggle between the legislature and the president and who has the power. Our founding fathers were unanimous, from Hamilton to Jefferson, that they placed that power to initiate or declare war in Congress because they wanted less war. They were tired of the perpetual wars of Europe between the royal families. They were tired of having too much power concentrated in the monarch. So they divided that power up. And that's what the founding fathers wanted. And then some people say, well, Congress is so feckless. They would never know how to get us started in war. But when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor and when we were attacked at 9/11, the vote by Congress was nearly unanimous. It's been when the dictate towards war or the reasons for war were less clear, like Iraq, that the votes was closer. And it turns out that, many of us think the Iraq war was a mistake, including
Senator,
President Trump. So,
Senator, I want your reaction to what happened with Venezuela this week, meeting with the oil executives, and what you have heard President Trump talk about in terms of Venezuela. There's right now Americans are being told not to travel there. It's very dangerous, that gangs are going to kidnap them. So your reaction to that?
My hope is for a free and a transformation to freedom and free elections in Venezuela. As far as oil companies coming back in, one thing they have to consider is the level of chaos that's still there, the amount of money that it would take, and also the memory that socialism didn't begin with Maduro or Chavez. Socialism began really with Perez in the early 1970s. They nationalized the natural gas in 71. They naturalized the oil companies in 76. So the ideas of socialism and nationalization are long held in Venezuela, and there are definitely risks. I hope our oil companies will go in, but it's not the job of the U.S. government to secure contracts or guarantee contracts. That would be individual private companies determining that it's safe enough and that it's a good risk for their capital.
And just quickly, if I can get you on Greenland, you said this week you'll do everything to stop any kind of military takeover of Greenland. The White House said that was not off the table. But do you actually think he would use military force, or are we overreacting to that?
I would hope not. But let's say you wanted to buy Greenland, and I'm not disputing that that might be something we might want, to buy Greenland. You don't get there by angering and denigrating the people who live there and saying, we're going to march the Marines in and take it if you don't sell it to us. It doesn't make them very willing sellers. So really, if your goal is somehow we're going to rattle the saber and then they're going to sell it to us, I think it's having the opposite effect. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone in Greenland for it, but you'd also be hard-pressed to find somebody in Washington who's for a military invasion on either side of the aisle. So I think there'll be enough pressure to stop it. But the problem is they keep rattling the saber. They keep saying, we're going to do this. We keep this in our armamentarium that we will, reserve the right to invade Greenland. And that gets back to the War Powers Act. That's why this debate's so important, because it's not just about Venezuela. It's about Venezuela. It's about Greenland. It's about Colombia. It's about Cuba. It's about whether or not the people get a say in whether we go to war.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Senator. Appreciate it.